want to ask you, when are people most prone to fail? Any thoughts about this? When they're comfortable, when they're complacent? It's a good answer, yeah? When is that? When are people? Because people who are comfortable and complacent don't realize they're comfortable and complacent, right? They don't know. They think they're just fine. When they're proud. Yeah, that's a good answer as well. But the question is, so when are they proud? Because proud people don't seem to know that they're proud. So I'm going to give you a measure that I think is much easier to deal with because it will apply to you immediately if it applies to you. All right? It doesn't mean it excuses anyone else. But I'm going to make a statement that I learned from my mentor, and I always kept it in my heart. And I'll put it this way. These are my own words. Please notate this or write it down. You will make your biggest mistakes in life in your old age. Now, I want to talk about someone who failed in his old age. I want to show you this in the Bible. Let's go with me to Numbers. Numbers chapter 20. Numbers chapter 20, all the way in the beginning. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers chapter 20. Here it is. And I'll just read it to you, this story. I won't assume that you know about it. You should know it. But this is titled, I got a chapter heading, Moses' Error at Kadesh. Now, Moses' error at Kadesh means it's the end of his life. So you might not realize this. He's now just about 120 years old. He's walked with God. He's seen miracles. You would think this is the man like who's invincible. He should have a force field of holiness around him, and he should not be making any mistake just before he dies. He's going to make his biggest mistake just before he dies. Here it is. Numbers 20, verse 1. Then the children of Israel, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. So you're going to start to see, one by one, the old generation are old. They're old now. They're going to start going. So his older sister goes first. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and Aaron. Now you watch this. He's been through this. You'd say 1,000 times, but that would be exaggerated. But he's been through this over and over for 40 years. But something happens to you when you're older, and you think, I've been through this before. I've seen it before. I've solved it before. Watch what happens. The people contended with Moses and spoke, saying, if only we had died with our brethren, when our brethren died before the Lord. Why have you brought up the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our animals should die here? And why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vine or pomegranates, nor is there any water to drink. So Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and they fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, here's the instruction. Take the rod, you and your brother Aaron gather the congregation together, speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water. Thus you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their animals. Verse 9. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock and said to them, hear now, you rebels, must we bring water for you out of this rock? It's gotten a lot more confident than 40 years ago. Right? 40 years ago it would have been the Lord's people, the Lord's miracle. The Lord is the rock, and the Lord's going to be your salvation. Today, it's a little 50% Lord and 50% Moses. But we won't fault him. Maybe just a slip of the pronoun there. But there's a change in the way he talks. Verse 11, then he lifted his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. What was the instruction? Speak. He doesn't do it. We need to find out why, what happened. The rabbis are completely mystified by this. And water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their animals drank. And you think, well, job done. Job done. You got water. What's next? What other miracles you want? And most of you as a congregant would be quite happy. You came to your pastor, you asked for a miracle, he give you a miracle. Should be happy. Everybody should be happy, but that's just man's perspective. We look at externals all the time. God looks at the heart, and God looks at eternity. He looks at a long-term perspective. And he was not happy with this. Verse 12, then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. Because you did not believe me to hallow or sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. What? You've done everything right for 40 years. You've put up with these annoying, complaining ex-slaves for 40 years. You've performed miracles for 40 years. And you strike a rock twice and you're out. And again, the rabbis say, why was the punishment so, in their mind, disproportionate to the crime? Why was the punishment so harsh compared to what the rabbis to this day think is a very light thing? And the rabbis are utterly wrong because God did not think it was a light thing. Something about this story says this is a really heavy thing. Now, to understand this better, I need to take you to 40 years previously in Exodus chapter 17. And we will find a similar incident with the similar group of people, with the same leader. And here's how it went 40 years earlier. Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Man, if you want people to get mad at you, make them hungry and thirsty. You will have riots. Therefore the people contended with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. It's a funny thing, isn't it? He's not running a cafe in the middle of the desert. He's not the water company in the desert. But they had enough respect for him, right? They had enough respect for here's a miracle-working, God-hearing preacher. They said, you do something about this lack of water in the middle of the wilderness. So Moses said to them, why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord? So you see how he deflects it off of him? So you're not fighting with me, you're fighting with God. Let me go to God about this. Very different sounding Moses. Same guy, but sounds different. And the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, why is it you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? Verse 4. So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, what shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said to Moses, go on before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod with which you struck the river, and go. So interesting, he describes the rod, and he clearly says this rod is a symbol of judgment. Isn't it? I mean, the rod was used for many things, but it was constantly used for judgment. He struck the river Nile, and it turned to blood. He didn't strike, he just lifted up at the Red Sea, and the Red Sea parted. Right? So it's a symbol of judgment, pretty clear, and it's made of wood. Wonder what that represents. Verse 6, behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, And you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the contention of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not? Here's a story of a rock that is struck the first time and gives them life. But the rock appears again after 40 years of rebellion, and again they're to look to the rock to be saved. And God says, watch out this time. Don't do it the same way you did the first time. This time you will only speak. Why? Because it's a type of Jesus Christ. And the rabbis can't understand that Jesus cannot be condemned twice. The rock is coming twice. Means the two comings of the Messiah. The Messiah came the first time and he was judged. But he will come a second time to judge. He will not be condemned again. He will not be punished or crucified again. And for Moses to take the cross and put it on him again made the Father very upset and said, I've had it with you. I know your name is Moses. I know you got gray hair. And I know you're going to be in the Bible forever. But you're not honoring me. And these types of mistakes happen in old age. We have to watch this. How do we prevent such mistakes in our old age?